Guys, when we start drawing eyes, the very first step is to build the overall shape. A lot of people define eyes using different shapes, but in my opinion, the best and easiest way to understand it is by thinking of an almond shape. Just imagine an almond. That's the base structure of most eyes. Now, the important thing you need to adjust is how long the almond is, how wide or narrow it is. This is where variation comes in. Generally, for female eyes, artists tend to keep them a bit smaller and more rounded. But in this case, the female eye I'm drawing is slightly longer, so I'll stretch the almond shape a bit more. And this is very important to understand. This is subjective. If someone tells you female eyes should always be round, that's not a strict rule. It's more of a stylistic choice, and it can change depending on the character or art style. So for this drawing, I'll go with a slightly elongated almond shape. Now let's talk about eyebrows. There's nothing too complicated here. Eyebrows are actually a very simple shape. You just need to focus on their flow and thickness. I'll lightly define the eyebrows while also starting to shape the eyelids and eye lines. Next comes a very important improvement step. Using pure black for line art often doesn't look that good or natural. Instead, many professional artists use a reddish or brown tone for their lines because it feels softer and blends better with the skin. So what I'll do is create a new layer. Use a clipping mask, fill it with a reddish color, then merge it with the line art. And now, our line art layer is ready with a much better reddish-brown tone, which looks more professional and visually appealing. Guys, now my sketch is almost complete. At this stage, there's not much left to do in the sketching part. So let's move on quickly to coloring, because coloring is actually the most important step. Sometimes, it's the coloring alone that gives your artwork that majestic and eye-catching look. Personally, when I color eyes, I use a lot of different colors and highlights around the eye area. This creates a glowing, rich effect that looks really beautiful and makes the artwork feel more alive. So first, I've already added a base color for the eye, which is orange in this case. Now I'll start adding shadows and highlights on top of it. Another important thing I want to mention is, when I draw eyes, I don't just stick to one or two colors. I like to add some random color variations like blue, green, orange. For example, to give a warm look, I might use more orange tones. Under the eyes, I sometimes add a stronger reddish tone. Around the tear ducts, I might add a slight bluish-white tint. You can always adjust these colors based on your own style and preference. The goal here is to create color variation, so your drawing doesn't feel flat or boring. These small color shifts make a huge difference and add depth to your artwork. Now I've also added some shadows on the eyelashes to give them more depth. Next, after finishing the iris area, we move on to the eyeball, the white part of the eye. A lot of artists use different colors here, but one important tip: never use pure white. Using pure white looks very unnatural because, in real life, the eye is never completely white. It always has some color and shading. So what I do is, I use a slightly bluish tone, then shift it a bit towards gray. This gives a much more natural and realistic look. After that, I select this entire area using the selection tool because it will help a lot in the next step. Now when I use an airbrush, shading becomes much easier and cleaner. Here's how I apply shading. On the upper side of the eyeball, I add stronger shadows because that's where shadows naturally fall due to the eyelashes. On the lower side, I add a softer shadow. Since the eyeball is a round shape, the front-facing area will naturally be the brightest part, where the highlight is strongest. And that's exactly why we use the selection tool. It makes using the airbrush much more controlled, easy, and efficient. Once this step is done, we move on to the eyelashes. So guys, since the overall tone of the eye is currently a bit orange, we need to balance it by adding some contrast. For that, I'll start working on the eyelashes using a darker tone, like deep brown or near black. I'll keep building them gradually, and at the same time, I'll make sure to give them a sharp, pointed look, because real eyelashes are thin and sharp, not soft or blurry. Now, especially for female characters, I like to slightly exaggerate the eyelashes. This means the upper eyelashes will be stronger, thicker, and more defined. The lower eyelashes will be lighter and more subtle, but still present. Many artists use this technique because it instantly gives a more realistic and appealing look to the eyes without much extra effort. Also, in real life, we do have small lashes on the lower eyelid too. so adding them helps the drawing feel more complete and natural. After finishing the eyelashes, I'll go back to the iris and add a few extra highlights and details to make it pop more. Right now, the overall eye is feeling a bit too dark and heavy, so I'll balance it by slightly lightening the skin tones around the eye area. This helps create better contrast and makes the eye stand out more, giving the whole artwork a cleaner and more polished look. Guys, now let's move on to the eyebrows. There's nothing too complex about eyebrows. They're actually pretty quick to do. I simply used the selection tool, filled in the base color, and within a couple of minutes, the eyebrows are done. After finishing the eyebrows, I did a bit more work on the iris. When I work on the iris, my main goal is to start with one base color, fill it in properly, then layer multiple different colors on top. Using multiple colors gives the eyes a more unique and vibrant feeling instead of looking flat. I also made the inner side of the iris slightly darker, especially on the darker side of the eye. This adds depth and makes the eye look more realistic. Now, moving forward, I keep using different color variations on the skin tone again and again. This helps create a more natural and rich variation, instead of a plain single-tone look. Along with that, I also add shadows in multiple areas. For example, the area above the eye has a strong skin fold, so naturally, it creates deeper shadows there. So I make sure to add stronger shading in that region to match real-life lighting. And guys, I might not know the exact technical names of every part of the eye, so if I say something slightly incorrect, just ignore that. The main focus here is the process I'm showing you. If you follow this process step by step, you'll be able to draw much better and more realistic eyes on your own. Now, throughout the entire process, I'll keep adding different colors and shadows. And this is a very important thing to understand. This part is completely subjective. It depends on how much you want to push it and what kind of look you're going for. So now, try to observe carefully how I'm using different colors. This is more of a stylistic choice, but personally, I really like this approach. Many artists heavily accent their drawings with multiple colors. You'll often see a single area having a mix of red, yellow, green, all blended together in one part of the drawing. And honestly, it creates a very interesting and visually rich look. So when I paint, I like to go a bit bold with colors. For example, even if the eye is primarily green, I'll still add slight dark yellow tones, a bit of brown shading, and other subtle variations. This helps make the eye feel more alive and dynamic, instead of flat. At this point, the best thing you can do is watch the process carefully and try to understand what I'm doing at each step. But more importantly, focus on how you can apply and demonstrate these techniques in your own artwork. Because at the end of the day, improvement only happens when you practice and implement, not just watch. That's the most important part. How well you can take what you learn and actually use it to improve your own art. So guys, as you can see, our eye drawing is now complete. I've tried my best from my side to teach you something useful and help you learn something new through this process. If you were able to learn even a small thing from this, that honestly means a lot to me. And if you feel this video helped you, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. It really supports me and helps me create more tutorials like this. Also, let me know in the comments what you want to learn next. Which tutorial should I make next? I'll definitely try to cover it. You can also check out more tutorials on my YouTube channel. There's a lot more content waiting for you to improve your art. Thanks for watching till the end. Now go and try it yourself. Come back with a better eye drawing. Thanks for watching.